paid by the hour. They're on a contract basis, just like many lawyers in the community who do work on risk management matters. Same type of arrangement.
Okay. So the statement that he made, does that apply to this situation?
I don't believe it does, no, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Cohn?
First, I want to thank everyone who appeared before us tonight. I appreciate your comments. I have held off on saying anything until I heard all of the input from the public tonight, and from email, and from phone calls, and from years involved in this. I may not necessarily agree with what you're saying, but I certainly admire the courage of your convictions. And I'm just a little bit angry at one particular individual. I don't know who he is, but the only way I can describe you, sir, and I hope you're watching tonight, is you are a coward. You called my wife's cell phone and left a very offensive message on her voicemail. There's no other word for you. You're a coward. Now back to the issue at hand. I had the dubious distinction of serving on the previous council which adopted this ordinance. And I think that one overriding factor has to be acknowledged, that this is the law as it stands today. The administration of Lafayette Consolidated Government has no choice but to administrate the law as it exists today. The process that was involved in gaining approval of the ordinance went on for over 2 years, if not longer, if you include the research done by Mr. Trammell as an individual on the state level. I served as part of the research team. We visited a number of communities in North Carolina and in Arizona. We had significant ongoing discussion in public in this very chamber about every issue that's being contended tonight. We talked about speeding. We talked about red light running. We talked about the combination that would be monitored at the intersection. That was no secret. It was discussed. It was written in the media. There was no effort to keep that a secret. The ordinance that we're addressing tonight merely carries out a process that was begun with the adoption of the ordinance. It was always the intent to have a local review of the process. This is part of the checks and balance. This assures you as a member of the general public that Redflex is not running a scam, that we are checking it on the local level. And there's been a comment, well, Redflex is not doing its job because 70% of the citations are being rejected. I think that we're doing our job, because that's part of the review process, is to confirm what Redflex is doing. I will tell you, and if you look at the minutes of the meeting, I opposed the initial proposal from Mr. Trammell and his department to create a new division and to hire more staff. I did not think, and I still do not think, this is the appropriate time to consider that move. That is part of the budget process, and I made that very clear to Mr. Trammell and to the administration. When we initially shot down this proposal, it prompted a series of conversations, one of which that stands out most in my mind is one I had with Mr. Boudreau. He suggested that perhaps the police department could administer the review process. I said, hey, good idea, let's check it out. We immediately met with Mr. Stanley, and we learned that that particular approach was problematic. But it did open some further discussion regarding the use of retired police officers, as is done in many of the other communities in which we did research. I find that much more acceptable. I serve on the Professional Services Committee, and we have now approved 5 retired police officers, and we have more applications to be reviewed, and I think this is a perfect way to address the situation. They will be employed on an as-needed basis. There are several talking points that have come out tonight. I think one of them is critical to really drill into, and that is the number of citations that have been issued thus far in the program. And the program is in the infant stages. Over 8,000 citations at Simcoe and University, less than 2 months of operation. Nearly 4,000 Foreman and Johnston, less than 2 weeks of operation. We may not have as serious of a red light running program as we thought, which is good, but we do have, and it has been certified and verified, we do have a serious speeding problem. We talk about the money. This has never been a matter of dollars. And we would be fools as members of this city parish council to anticipate revenues from this program as a recurring source of revenue, much less expect that we might be able to bond it. Mr. Boudreau has very effectively addressed the issue, and so has Mr. Shelvin, about the geographical distribution of the program. When I served on the previous council, I agreed with Mr. Trammell's statistics that the need was where the initial locations were cited for the program. Subsequent statistical analysis proves that, well, maybe we were a little bit off base, and we are addressing that. And Mr. Trammell has met with the council members. We've discussed it, and I think we're going to address that issue, and I'm quite comfortable with that. I'm going to vote for this. This was the intent of the program from day one. There was never any attempt to maintain this in secrecy. Perhaps people are now becoming aware of what the ordinance says because the ordinance is being executed. And that's the way it should be. And I will just close my comments by saying very simply, it is the law. If we don't like that law, let's amend it, let's change it, let's get rid of it. But for the moment, it is the law, and we do need to follow the procedure in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Call.